Mr. Ken Gutman. He's the superintendent for the Walled Lake School District. Thank you so much for being with us. I have to say, were you ready for the governor's announcement this past Sunday, or as a superintendent, were you guys kind of given a heads up at all that this announcement was going to be in the pipelines?
Good morning. Yeah, no, I did not actually find out about it until earlier in the day, and we started to hear some rumors about her announcement, but nothing was confirmed until about an hour before the announcement. So it took all of us by surprise. There had been rumors throughout the week that there would be an announcement, but nothing until that morning.
You know, one of the things from my standpoint, I find that so surprising because you're not the first person that told us from the first industry. We had one of our state reps on yesterday who said they heard the rumors. We all anticipated because she had been alluding that some type of restrictions were in the pipeline for well over a week now. But even our elected leaders didn't know until they were watching the press conference live along with the rest of us. So as someone who's a superintendent who has you're in this game, to get that announcement at the last point in time. I know for you guys, you're already well adversed in doing remote learning, but what does this mean to members of you and your team when this goes public? What is the reaction from the flurry of inquiries you must get at that moment from parents?
I think you know, Ronnie. I mean, I think it's a loaded question. We would have loved to have had a heads up, but we would have loved to have had. I mean, some notice would have been great, but certainly there is a flurry after that. What does that mean for us in our district? Fortunately, I had an hour to think about it, but we're virtual secondary. We're in person as an option in elementary. We're looking at that this evening at a special board meeting, whether or not we should be in person or whether we should pause that for a period of time. But the heads up would have been fantastic. It would have helped us make a more informed decisions, and certainly we had to go into reaction mode, and that's never a comfortable place to be.
It's not, because I feel like you don't have the time to actually have the conversations that you need to have to flush out some of the decision making that you're going to have, because once that information goes public, the phones start ringing and the email starts dinging, and it's like you said, you're just in reaction mode from that point in time. And looking at that, what is the decision? And we're going into the winter months, and quite honestly, I don't think it's going to be just 3 weeks.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a skeptical part of me that thinks the numbers don't look like they're abating in any way. And so I hope it's only 3 weeks. We're still going to plan on bringing back our secondaries for the second semester, our eighth graders through our seniors. The goal is to bring them back second semester. We're not backing off. Even if we do pause instruction, which has not been determined for elementary, we're looking to bring them back. So the goal is to continue in-person instruction. Will it be 3 weeks that this pause continues? I don't know. I worry. The longer this goes, the more difficult it is. In-person instruction is far superior to remote instruction, although our teachers are doing a fantastic job. So, yeah, do I think it'll be 3 weeks? The cynical part of me thinks it's going to be a little bit longer as well. Will there be a spike after Thanksgiving? Will there be a spike after the December holidays? Probably.
Yeah, and it's just how people are. And, we know that they've been warning, but the numbers were still going up. I think everyone anticipated the numbers were going to go up, especially with the election. But as someone that's a member of a school district trying to make decisions, and while maybe I'm a parent of a high school individual, that decision and how it impacts that student is so different than maybe a first grader or someone with special needs. So I know we've talked to you about this in the past, but talk about that conversation and those decision makings when you're having so many different variables coming into how you're making your decisions.
You make the best decisions you can with the information you have. The difficulty is the information keeps changing. And of course, it changed again this past Sunday. So And I've shared this with you before, what really concerns me the most is our most vulnerable students become more vulnerable at a time like this. Whether it's our students who are food insecure, our students who receive special services, English language learners, those students continue to be more vulnerable than they were before. And so the challenges continue to rise the longer we are virtual. And yet we do have an obligation to make sure that we keep everyone safe. All the research, now everything we're being told is that transmission does not occur in schools. The difficulty for a lot of districts, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for us, is staffing. When you have to continue to quarantine people because either they tested positive or they've been exposed to someone who tested positive, now staffing becomes an issue. And so you start filling positions with other people, and the ability to fill positions with substitutes becomes far more difficult during this pandemic because not as many people are willing to be a substitute teacher and go classroom to classroom, building to building, day to day.
Oh, so see, that's why we have these conversations with people such as yourself, because you bring so many other interesting and tidbits and information to the conversation that some of us don't think about, or so many parents probably aren't thinking about as well right now. If we could talk about cases for a second, because just in general, the public is confused. If you're tested, if you've been around, and you're saying, you have different government entities telling you, okay, if you've been exposed to someone, then you need to self-quarantine. But if I have to go to work, you have to go to work. But then do quarantine, then you're in your situation. Plus, if someone tests positive, it could stay in their system for long after they're contagious. So how is all of this trying to play in your decision making of keeping this, rat race running, per se? I mean, there's so many facets to this. It's like a Ferris wheel, and you must feel like you're just trying to plug the holes each and every day.
And that's the difficulty. We had 3 of our elementary principals already quarantined out of our 12 elementaries after 1 week of in-person instruction, and they weren't even all, it wasn't 1 week, a full week of students. It was just a phase-in week with some days with all students. So, I get this 8.5 by, I'll turn it the right way so I don't expose anyone's information, but I can't even see it. 8.5 by 14 page this morning that I get every morning with the cases we have among our staff, who's quarantined, how long they're isolated, whether they've tested positive or whether they've been exposed to someone. And it's plugging holes every day. It's trying to find a way to make sure we have people in classrooms, in other positions, secretaries, principals, and it becomes increasingly difficult the more cases we have. Obviously, you want to err on the side of safety, and if someone's exposed to someone who's tested positive, or if they're having symptoms, you can't have them in the school.
Superintendent Kenneth Gutman from the Walled Lake Consolidated School District joining us today on the Oakland County MegaCast. We are also broadcasting live via Facebook Live on the Walled Lake Consolidated School District Facebook page as well. And Superintendent Gutman, as you mentioned earlier on, there is a special school board meeting scheduled for this week to discuss plans in other areas of the school district. Of course, the Health and Human Services Department's recent epidemic order bars in-person learning at the high school level for the next 3 weeks. It does not, however, bar learning at other levels of schooling in our local school districts. That, of course, is a decision that's left up to the school districts. So what is being considered by the school district? What discussions have you had with your administration, with members of the school board, maybe already, about potential outcomes of these decisions that could be made tonight? Because you currently have options for your parents and for these families to decide one of 3 different paths for learning: the My Path, Our Path, and the in-person instructions. And for some parents, they are really concerned. We have a concerned parent on your Facebook page, the school district's Facebook page right now, about how their student reacted to learning remotely versus in person, and they're at the elementary school level. Are there going to be options for parents, even at a very limited capacity, to keep kids in school if that is their best course of learning?
Yeah, and of course it is the best course of learning. I don't think anyone's going to argue that virtual learning is better. But nothing's been decided. I mean, obviously that's why our Board of Education meets, and that's why they're meeting this evening to talk about what options exist, whether or not we pause, whether or not we stay in person. that's the conversation this evening. I will tell you that, and you know this, the districts around us, there are very few that are still in person. And so obviously it's still an in-district decision, but our board's going to consider all options this evening. We're really happy with the 3 options we have. I can say this, that, I don't know what's going to happen this evening, but if our board did pause, I'm committed to making sure we get back as soon as possible. And if they don't pause, great, we're still in person. We just have to consider all of the safety perspectives. Can we fill our classrooms? We've already closed 3 of our elementaries. Can we keep the other 9 open? I don't know. So that's what we'll have a pretty robust discussion this evening. And I don't want to predict what the outcome will be.
How hard is it for you as a superintendent to have these conversations with parents who are so concerned about their kids and their kids' education when you yourself and so many others, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. And what you say in this moment is based on the information you have at this moment, but that information could change. And I think that's why we're seeing so much frustration and confusion in the community as a whole, because that information is changing daily, if not hourly. But you're also in such a unique position that these conversations have to be hard for you and your team leaders. What do you want the parents to know and to try to understand? I mean, this isn't March, but it's still 8 months into it, and we're still kind of in this rabbit hole that we were in the first few months.
Yeah, there's nothing I can say that's going to make anybody feel better. I mean, I feel terrible for parents and students who are going through this. I feel terrible for our staff. I can tell you, as the dad of a high school senior last year, he didn't have the senior year I would have liked for him to have had. He learned some resilience, and that life doesn't always go the way you want it, but it's deeper than that. You can't provide the very best education to our kids in a situation like this, and that's heartbreaking because that's what we do. We provide the very best. So now we're providing the very best that we can under the circumstances. There's nothing I can say that's going to make anybody happy right now, so I won't pretend to do that, except that we still do care about each and every one of our children, and we're trying to make the best decisions we can with changing information. And it's changing, as you said, right, pretty quickly. Day to day, hour to hour, the information we receive changes.
Oh, it's got to be so hard. I want to talk a little bit about some of your staff members. They're doing great jobs in the middle of this and still being recognized. But before we get to that, can I just try to get an update on the situation with the hacking? Where does that stand with law enforcement? And also, do you have any words of advice going through that to other school districts as well?
Yeah, so that's so where we are now is we've notified those who are affected, and as far as we have been notified, the only people, staff members and former staff members have been affected, and some of their personal information, social security numbers and names have been taken by the hackers. No parents or students have had any personally identifiable information as defined by federal authorities taken from them. So the difficulty is, it takes one person to click on a link and hackers get in. And so we're going to continue to work on an education piece with our staff. We see this is happening to businesses. We see the prevalence is far greater now that people are working from home and there's an easier way to get into networks. It's a lose-lose because out of pure innocence, some of these links people click on look legitimate. Some of them look horrible. You've seen those, and you don't want to click on those. But some look legitimate, and all it takes is one person to click. So it's a question of education and probably a little bit of luck that school districts and businesses don't end up getting hacked. Again, the prevalence in education is far greater now, and they tend to attack bigger districts. We're happier where we are now than where we were. We have our system rebuilt, and we have stronger protocols in place. We work closely with the FBI and federal authorities and cyber professionals and attorneys from out of state who specialize in this. So I don't know that I have the best advice other than keep educating your staff or your business, your community, in terms of what to click on and what not to and what to look for.
Well, and not just for your staff members, but we had the CEO for the Better Business Bureau on yesterday, and we were talking about that. And some of these online scams look so real, whether it, from an individual standpoint. I know that it could be from Netflix or Apple, but I do know when I even worked for ATF, a federal law enforcement agency, we went through the same thing, and they'll make it look like it's concerning your hours or concerning something work related that you feel like you have to click on. So they're very good and they're very smart, especially if they can send it to people within a federal law enforcement agency as well. So thank you for that. They are. And, I always say if these people would put that energy into legitimate businesses, they would be multimillionaires,
For sure.
Oh,
for sure. It's a different skill set.
Definitely. So, but thank you for the update. We do appreciate that. Before we let you go, though, we do want to take a few moments, though, to just let you talk about some of the members of your staff. Difficult time for them, but even in the middle of all of this, you have a lot of them, several of them, that have won educational awards as well. Do you kind of want to give a shout out to some of those members before we let you go?
I do, thank you. And I do want to also thank our entire staff. They're working selflessly right now under difficult conditions. We do have 3 who were recognized recently, and we're really proud of them as well. Michelle Fipke-Lang retired after a long and successful career here in Walled Lake Schools, although she's currently back with us as a coordinator for our path. But she just won the Region 7 Elementary Principal of the Year by the Michigan Elementary and Middle School Principals Association, so we're really proud of her. Barb Marjanovic, who's a PE teacher at Keith Elementary, was named the Elementary Physical Education Teacher of the Year by Shape America, that's the Society of Health and Physical Educators. But not only at the elementary school, of course, we have a high school teacher, Brad Shack from Walled Lake Western, who's been named the High School Physical Education Teacher of the Year by Shape America as well. So we're really proud of them. In spite of everything going on around us, our staff members continue to excel, take care of children, and obviously be recognized for that.
Well, you're definitely only as strong as your weakest link, and it looks like you have some amazing people working for you over there at the Walled Lake schools. And with that, I know the last time we had chatted, you were hoping that some people would want to step up to be some substitute teachers right now. Before we let you go, do you want to touch on that? And also just what are the qualifications? If I'm a retired person sitting home, or maybe I'm a worker that's laid off from work, what qualifications are you looking for? Because can work experience sometimes take the place of some of those educational requirements?
Sure they can. And really our requirement has a lot to do with how many college credits you have. So if anyone's even considering it, we would beg you, please come in and talk to us, 248-956-2000. Think about subbing for us. We'd love to have you come in and take care of our children. We certainly want to sit down and interview you and put the very best people in front of our kids so we don't continue to lose more time.
Yeah, and with that, are these positions remote learning as you go remote, or would the substitute basically juggle whatever your district is juggling at that time?
Yeah, so primarily we're looking for in-person substitutes right now, and I hope we don't have to consider more virtual subs. Right now, we just want to make sure that we take care of our classrooms when kids are in person, and then the virtual classes, our teachers are preparing lessons for when they're not able to teach.
So I guess for me, I'd have to go back to like first or second grade, because the kids are so much smarter now than we were. Like fifth graders today are like us as 16, 17 years old. They're so much smarter than us. So, it's a tough world to navigate.
Yeah, it really is. Subbing's hard anyway. I mean, you come into a different situation every day in a different room, and subbing's when students aren't always on their best behavior. Not here in Walled Lake. I hear that happens in other districts. But we certainly could use the help and would love to have someone come in front. If you want to sub, we'll set you up.
Maybe my next
Fourth
life.
grade, think about it.
Fourth grade, I could maybe do that. Well, Superintendent Ken Gutman with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast with Walled Lake Schools. We always appreciate having you on with us. And also, thank you for being willing to come on and speak openly and honestly about the situation there in Walled Lake and trying to share this message with the parents as well as your students as well. We always appreciate it. So thank you for being with us here on the MegaCast.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.